In Premiere, you can not only add effects to the shots, but you can also animate them. And when you animate, you change something with time. And to give you a very easy example, let's add a color balance effect to this shot over here. And let's say that we want to change the saturation over time, so that at the start of the shot the saturation should be low, and then during a few seconds we increase the saturation. Then you need to animate, and what you animate is of course the saturation. And if we look here in the after control, effect control window, we see that each attribute here has a small icon, a toggle animation icon here. It looks like a small stopwatch. And when you animate, it is often a good idea to zoom in time so that you see more clearly what happens. Because often animations are quite quick. Not always, of course, but often. Okay. Let's say that at the start here, we want the saturation to be very low. So I position the time marker at the start of the shot, and then I toggle the animation. I start the animation, make it possible to do animations. At the start of the shot here, we see a small rhombic icon here, and that is a keyframe. And a keyframe is a position in time which holds a specific value. And in this case, if we bring down the saturation here, now we know that at this time, 4 seconds and 20 frames into the movie, at that specific time, the saturation will be -100, which will in this case means that the color is completely taken away and the image is black and white. So that is our first keyframe. And then a little bit later in the shot, at 8 seconds, 4 seconds later, then we want to have the saturation high. So I position the time marker either here in the timeline or here in the local timeline of the shot. And then I simply increase the saturation. And since the toggle animation is enabled, After Effects automatically adds a new keyframe here. So every time I make a change, when I make a change here, it adds a keyframe. So I need to be a little bit careful so I don't wound up with lots of keyframes. If I make a mistake and want to take away a keyframe, I drag a marquee to select it and press delete on the keyboard, and the keyframe is taken away. Okay, so now here at the start of the shot is black and white, and a little bit further down in the timeline it is highly saturated. And if we place the time marker at the start here and then play the shot, we'll see that we have an animation. If we look at that again, place it at the start and then play, you can see that the saturation increases. So there we have an animation. In order to change the animation, we can change the keyframes in time. I take away this middle one just to make it more clear here. We can change the animation in time. If I move this keyframe, I select it and move it closer to the other one, earlier in time. Then of course the animation will go quicker. because the distance between these are just a couple of seconds. If I move it further down over here to the end of the shot, it will be slower.
I like that she kind of had a little kind of glance away.
Like that. So that is change in time. Then I can change the value of this animation also. Maybe I thought that the high saturation is a little bit too high. I want to lower it. Then I need to position the time marker on the keyframe. And it needs to be exactly on the keyframe. Otherwise I will create a new keyframe. Because if I put the time marker a little bit on the side here and make a change, then I just get a new keyframe. And I don't want that. I want to position the time marker on the old keyframe, because then I can change that keyframe. I can also right click on the keyframe and go to no. So I need to position myself on the keyframe. And the easiest way to do this is to jump between the keyframes like this, using these arrows here. And when this small icon in the middle here is highlighted, then I know that the time marker is exactly on the keyframe. And when it is on the keyframe here, I can adjust the value. For example, lower the saturation. And if you play this now,
I like that she kind of...
the final saturation will be lowered. And all attributes that you have on a shot can be animated when you have toggled the animation. So for example, in order to make a zoom, you can toggle the scale. You can toggle animation so that you can scale and rotate at the same time, for example. So now we have 3 animations on the same time: the color, the rotation, and the scale.
I like that she kind of had a little...
If you look down in the timeline, there's a red line here, and that red line shows that we have effects on the shots that needs to be rendered. When I play the animation here, or to play the shot, it looks quite okay. It's a little bit pixelated and jagged. And that is because when Premiere plays it in real time, and it makes the effects in real time. So I don't really see the actual effects. I see a kind of proxy or temporary effects. If I really want to see the effects as they are, I can, in order to make it a little bit quicker here for Premiere, I use just one shot here. If I press enter now, it renders a preview of the effects. So after this, Premiere will actually play a perfect version of the effect. And I will see it as it will look in the final movie.
I like that she kind of had a little kind of glance away.
And here in the timeline, the marker is green now, showing that it is a preview of the effect that I see. As soon as I make a change, it will go back to the red one, and I need to re-render this preview of the effect. Or I can just look at the effect that is calculated on the fly, so to speak. Okay, I have selected and deleted all the keyframes. I can also toggle off the animations here. Another thing that you can do with the animation is to create fade-ins and fade-overs. Under effects there are video transitions down here in order to make fade between different shots, but I actually think it's more easy to just animate the transparency. Very often at the start of a movie you have a fade in from black, and in order to do that here I go to the effect control, I select the shot, and then I animate the opacity. And I start with 0 opacity, and since the background for the whole movie is black, then the image goes black when this shot is completely transparent. And opacity adds a keyframe here. So let's say that we start with black, then we need to here, I want it to be fully opaque, then I write 100%, and we are up to an opaque image. Maybe that one was a little bit too late, so we drag that to a little bit earlier like that. Then here I want to fade in to another shot, and then I go to that shot, select it, go to the effect control, type in 0, let it roll a little bit, and then type in 100. So now we have animations at the start here and at the transfer here. So if we play this, it will fade up from black, and here comes the transition, and now we are on the second shot. So that is how I usually do transitions. Unless I use straight cuts, of course. A straight cut looks like this, with no transfer or fade in at all, and that is actually the most common cut.